Hello, it's Trisha from So Totally Trisha. I'm looking to show you how to make a mobile phone stand, and I've got them in two sizes. So this one here was made with a piece of fabric which was 5 inches wide by 12 inches long, and then this larger one was 6 inches wide by 14 inches long. So it will take a mobile phone either vertically or horizontally. Just makes life easy when you don't want to hold this, or you want it propped up so that you can watch easily. So how do we start? So what we do first of all is we take our fabric and fold it in half, right sides together. And I've already folded back that short top edge and pressed it on both sides. Then we are going to stitch the whole way down from the what were the raw edges to the bottom, to the folded edge. But then on the other side, we're going to leave an opening. So I have stitched this already, and I'm just going to open that just a little bit more. Okay, so that is, so we've left that at the fold open for our stuffing. So what I'm going to do now is turn that to the right side, remembering that we do have a hole at that bottom edge, and that is exactly what we want it to be. So I'm just going to take it to the ironing board and give that a press with those raw edges at the opening tucked in, and then we can just press that so that that's nice and flat. So I'm still lining up those top edges that we folded back by 1/4 inch, and just pop the scissors or something into those corner points. There we are. So I've pressed that now. As we say, we have that opening there. So I'm going to now stitch. Let's just see how wide that is. That is just over an inch. So I'm going to make a line. I'm going to draw a line, which is 1 1/4 inches from where the open seam is and from one side to the other. Okay, and I am going to, there we are. So I'm going to stitch on that line that I've just drawn, and I'm going to reverse at the beginning just to secure that, and then stitch all the way across. And then at the same time, I'm also going to stitch a foot's width, so just the width of my foot away from that stitched line there. So again, we can reverse and straight across there. That makes a nice little ridge or channel for our device to sit in. So let's just cut away those those thread ends, just so that it's nice and neat. Okay, let's clip that little one there and there. So the first thing we need to do is to fill where the gap is at the bottom. We're just going to fill this little channel. So just pop that open. I have got, and I hope this is going to work, a little funnel and some rice. So let's see how, hopefully, that is going to pour through there. Not the biggest of openings. There we are. Right, okay, it's decided it's going to be really, really slow. So what I'm going to do instead, oh, I see it's being blocked. I'm just going to hold that carefully and see if I can, with a piece of paper underneath, I'm just going to see the hole isn't that big. So I do want something underneath. Perhaps we'll use one of our mug rugs. Let's see if that holds that all together. There we go. So let's see if that... so a nice funnel with a nice big hole is obviously the easiest to do. I did try earlier, if you fold a piece of paper, or you could perhaps get one of those piping bags, an icing bag. Right, so that's better. So once you've got a bit in, I'm just using a paintbrush, just poke that down so it's nice and solid there. Okay, and I think we could get just a little bit more in here. We are going to close this up by hand. So I would also say take it away from your machine, because the last thing you want is grains of rice going into your machine. So I filled that, as you can see, nice and plump there. And I'm just going to get a little bit, have I got enough here? Needle and thread. This is one of two. No, we're only going to do this one little bit of sewing by hand. So my thread wasn't long enough there. Poke that through. So I'm doubling up my thread and just make a little knot in the end, pull that down, and then we're just going to sew this end up here. So I'm going to come in, usually I would do a mattress stitch, but because I've got some nice fine thread, I'm just going to whip stitch across here, because you can hardly see it. So over stitch, over casting, just going over from one side to the other. You want your seams to be quite robust, because you don't want the rice falling out. Okay, and once we get to that bottom end, I'm just going to put my needle through that loop, and I'll do it once more to give a nice knot, and then I'm going to stitch into, just like we do in wadding, stitch it into that channel, give it a little tug so that the thread will then disappear into our channel there. So the next little bit is we need to open this so that these seams match. So I've got the seam at each side, just clipping that little bit off. So we are going to open it up like opening a mouth and match these seams. I'm going to have one seam going one way and one the other. I'm going to pop a clip where they come together, and I'm going to stitch two just past the seam here, because we also need to stuff this as well. So straight under the machine and fairly close to the edge. Whoops. And we are reversing at the beginning. And when I get a little bit closer to here, I am just making sure that those seams are tucked in there. And as I say, we're going to leave a fairly large opening so that that's there. So it's probably about 2 inches, so that we can put our stuffing in that hole there. So the first thing I'm going to do, bigger hole better, is put some rice in. This just gives it a little bit more stability. See how much better that is. There we go. And I might even put the rest of this in here. And then we're just going to top up. There we are. No rice for Martin's dinner tonight. So I've got that, makes it nice and stable. Then I'm going to take some stuffing. So I'm just going to pop the stuffing, leave it all in a large chunk, and then as you push one bit in, the rest follows through too. So just pop that. That's why a nice large hole for it to be able to pop straight in like that. And this is what gives you the triangular, there we are, it's coming along nicely. So a little bit more, whoops, there we are, a little bit more stuffing. We want it to be stuffed enough, but not too tight, because we're going to use the machine to close up this gap, which we're feeding our stuffing into. We don't want it to be overstuffed, unless you want to sew it up by hand, which of course you can. Right, just pushing that down towards, I can see a bit more is going to go in here. So, as I say, just keep it all, and then as you, well, whilst it's all together, rather than just pulling off little bits of stuffing and putting it in, you can just poke your finger in there and it takes the rest of it, you see, a lot quicker than individual clumps. I think we've perhaps got enough there. So let's just push that in, and we can push that away from the opening. I think that feels as though that's going to be quite good. So while we've still got a little bit of a gap, we can pull that together, and then I'll start from where I finished sewing. We'll start from there, and then we'll just stitch to the end. So just go over the first few stitches that you've already stitched, because obviously we don't want this to spring open, and then carry on over to the side. And that is that. Clip those threads off there, and that one, and this one at this end. So nice and straightforward. We can then squidge it about to distribute that stuffing. The rice stays at the bottom there, I can feel it, so it makes it quite firm and heavy. And we can then pop, whoops, the mobile in there. If it's too squidgy, push it back a bit, and there, just push it back, and there it is. So as simple as that for making your mobile phone stand. I hope you've enjoyed. Tune in tomorrow to the Sew with Trisha group, because I think then we will be doing our bag of the month, which I'm afraid I had to delay from Tuesday. But I'm sure we're all going to be back live on Friday at 6:30 for the bag of the month. So take care of yourselves, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.